Well done, Rhiannon. Thanks to Anna there. Now, the economy was a key part of the election campaign, of course, for all the parties, but the Conservatives clearly won that argument. So will Labour ever again regain economic credibility? Well, Chris Leslie is Labour's shadow chief secretary to the Treasury, a job he's done since October 2013. He joins me now. Very good morning to you,
hello,
Mr. Leslie. And of course, well then, you're the senior Treasury spokesman with Ed Balls gone. That's a big loss to your party, isn't it?
Of course it is, and as is Douglas Alexander, and of course Ed Miliband as well. And I think, you know, they've served the party incredibly well over recent years, and it is a blow to lose those big individuals who've done such, you know, important things for the party.
So, I mean, does that make you the shadow chancellor, or I suppose there's no one in charge yet to make those decisions? But, you know, we've got to then put these economic questions to you. It was at the core of your campaign, and let's relate it to what Lord Mandelson has just been saying. He says the impression you gave was that you hated the rich. You wanted to tax their salaries, tax their houses, tax their pensions, and they felt that they were not included in the big, well, was it a big Labour tent?
Well, look, I mean, it has been a very bruising 48 hours for us in the Labour Party, and you're right to say that we need to focus on the reasons why we lost. I think that there were a lot of people who wanted to support the Labour Party, but that when it came to that ballot box and the ballot paper, they just felt that they couldn't. And we've got to understand why they were hesitant, why they were fearful. Now, I think there were a number of factors in that.
Wasn't that aspirational message there, that if you get rich, we don't really stand for you?
I think there was, it was too easy for the Conservatives to peddle the misperception that somehow we were anti-business and somehow we were not standing up for that centre ground, for that middle income group of people in this country who I think are important in the entrepreneurial way of generating the wealth and creating the wealth for the country.
Lord Mandelson was talking about people at the very top.
Well, look, I mean, we want a fairer society and we want social justice. The Labour Party will always want that, but we've got to make sure that we get that trust back on the economy. And I'm actually quite focused, you know, for this particular period on the fact that the Chancellor, the Prime Minister, now that they have this majority, they're not going to wait around for the Labour Party. They're going to be getting on with their agenda. And we know that there are some massive, massive cuts to come to public services, to social security, but they haven't really explained where from. And of course, their manifesto they were elected on was predicated very much on unfunded commitments. Now, put those two things together, you've got an enormous black hole, and I'm not going to let George Osborne or David Cameron get away without explaining who is going to be paying the price for that.
So where would you like to see, when Labour does get its act together, campaigning from? What part of the political spectrum? Lord Mandelson laying out his stall, his vision very clearly. Tony Blair writing today in the paper saying you cannot abandon the centre ground. There are others saying, well, no, the example we have to take comes from Scotland. The SNP stood to the left of us on those social and economic questions. That's what we need to do. What's your view?
Well, there is a job to rebuild in Scotland, but I've been saying this already, I'm very focused about England and Wales.
From almost the twin defeats.
Yeah, and let me explain. I think in England and Wales, as I was saying, there were a lot of people wanting to support Labour. You could even see it in those now slightly discredited opinion polls that there were, you know, wanting to be with us. But those fears and anxieties, they are difficult to confront, but we have to confront them. Why did people pause? Why were they hesitant? Some of that, I think, was partly the question about could they trust us on the economy. I think the Conservatives were very successful in whipping up that fear that somehow Nicola Sturgeon and the Labour Party would create that greater risk. That also made people hesitate. But look, we've got to get this right. We've got to focus on our new vision for the future and understand and analyse what happened. But in the interim period, we've also got to make sure that we hold those Tories to check.
But now's the time, Mr. Les, isn't it, to level with the public. We're not in a general election campaign. We won't be for nearly another 5 years. And you make it sound as if people just misinterpreted the policies you had going into that general election. Do you feel they were just the wrong policies?
Well, look, I think there is certainly a lot of reviewing we have to do of the whole of our policy.
Well, were they the right policies with the wrong interpretation, or just the wrong policies?
I'm not the sort of character that goes back and trashes what we've just been arguing or our legacy in the past. I am a proud member of a team in the Labour Party. We all take a collective responsibility for this. But of course, it's the perceptions of the public we've got to listen to. If we simply go along and say what we feel alone,
I can put it as a very straight
question.
From your point of view, would you keep the mansion tax? Would you keep the increase in the top rate of tax? Would you keep the raids on big pension funds?
Well, we've just lost the election.
Those?
Those policies did not succeed. They've all got
They
to
didn't
be.
work, but
They've
were they the
all
right
got to be
policies
reviewed.
or the wrong policies?
I think. Look, I'm not going to stand today, 48 hours after arguing for those policies that I disagree with.
Lord Mandelson thinks they were the wrong policies.
I agreed with the platform that we put out, but the public didn't. And therefore,
so the public
what's the best
wrong.
thing to do? No, the public, I think, are of course correct in their judgment, but we have to listen to what they were saying. And in particular, I want to listen to those views in England and Wales in particular, because they were hesitant about us on that. And that's why I think we've got to make sure we have a broad appeal, draw people together in the party, but listen to those things about wealth creation and not just about wealth distribution. Important, of course, that is.
But there is a fundamental question. It's not about policy, and it's again flowing from Lord Mandelson, flowing from Tony Blair today. Was the big error made long before the campaign started when Ed Miliband said, "I'm not Tony Blair"? You junked that past. You lost that winning record. You denied all the successes of those Blair and Brown years.
No, and I understand the arguments that are being made, but look, this can't be about going back and fighting those old battles of 7 or 12 years ago.
But they're not battles. I mean, they were successes. They were election victories.
I was a minister in previous Labour governments, and I'm very proud of being a minister in previous Labour governments. But I think now we need to face the future. The longer-term question is how we, of course, create that coalition for the longer term in 2020.
Mr. Miliband
But there's an
appeared as if he
immediate
wasn't
task as
proud.
well. There's an immediate task as well, and I'm very concerned about that. It is basically George Osborne and David Cameron. They will be rushing to get their agenda through. The Conservative Party, I suspect, is going to fragment on a number of different ways, particularly on Europe. But when it comes to the economy and it comes to public services, we've got to reform those public services, but we've also got to make sure we pin them down on where those cuts are going to fall and who is going to pay the price for that. That is our immediate job.
But you know, your problem is who's going to be making those arguments in Parliament who have got their act together. It's Alex Salmond and that cohort of SNP MPs.
And I think we should have been very clear from earlier on that we had no truck with them. I mean, we absolutely spelt out that we wouldn't do deals with them, and I think that was the right thing to do, but we allowed the Conservative Party to peddle that myth, and of course that percolated into people's anxieties about us, and that in many ways is part of the reason I think we have seen a Conservative majority.
Good to see you, Mr. Leslie. Thank you very much indeed. Chris Leslie there. Now, in the last Parliament, the Lib Dems had